It's WG, bring you SMB and Clan Hunt just released, and you want to know what you're meant to do, what is going on, and what the hell this is all about. So what we're going to be going over here is really quickly through the rewards, and then we go through every fight one by one, as well as also the concept of mock battle. So let's start this whole thing off by talking about the rewards. The main rewards you're going to get out of this whole shenanigan are the ranking rewards, in which you'll be able to get a massive amount of clan coins, as well as of Meat of Rebirth, which you can use to summon Cyrene, the free SSR character. And then you also do get a amount of clan coins for beating a boss together with your clan. You can see right here you get like 50 each, and then it goes higher the higher level the bosses. So those are like the basics for the rewards and why you should participate in here. And this whole thing is like based on clan ranking. So now let's actually move on to the fights themselves. So let's start with the absolute basics. Basics are there's 5 bosses, but you can only attack 3 times. Which means out of the 5 bosses I'm about to show you, you should pick the best 3 for yourself. Or depending on if you're, for example, the last of one or one of the last guys attacking, you just have to pick what is remaining. In general, the attack order for your clan should go lowest BP people attacking first, highest BP later, to potentially already move into, let's say, round 6, round 11, round 16, where, as you can see, the level of the boss does actually increase, meaning the stage becomes more difficult and it takes more damage to defeat the stage, right? This is important. You need to build 3 different teams. You cannot use a vessel twice. So 3 different non-identical teams, and also shift gear in between these stages. You can shift gear and artifacts from fight 1 to fight 2, and that is what you should be doing. Now let's go through the fights one by one and let me tell you about what you can know about these fights. So the very first fight is going to be you against these swarming enemies right here, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 melee guys and then 2 ranged guys. So considering the fact that you're facing 5 enemies, or in total 7, AoE damage is obviously advised, which is why you have all like these potential characters right here. The reason why the potential characters are over there and not right here is because there's a stage mechanic, and that stage mechanic actually reads, let's make sure you can all see it quite clearly. This stage mechanic actually reads: when continuous damage takes effect, which means when continuous damage ticks, so it does the damage instance described on it, there's a 5% chance to deal true damage equal to 100% of the damage dealt to nearby enemies in a circle. So it can trigger twice at 5%, and also each instance of continuous damage on an enemy increases the continuous damage they take by 3%, going up to a maximum of extra 30%. So that is the baseline of how this fight works, which means you have prime targets you want to be looking at, and that is, you have Dalcalo for the continuous damage on divine enemies, you have Agaris for the burn, for the 5-stack burn in big AoE, you have Adacias for the AoE slashes, Nicole for the bleed dashes to potentially already work on these enemies too, and then you also have a Tihati. Tactic wise, as far as I can tell, because I cannot actually fight any bosses because they're currently too weak for us to make any real conclusions, but what I'm going to tell you is, looking at these enemies, the way you want to play this fight is somewhat simple. These guys are all going to move to your melee unit, so you're going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 targets that are all going to kind of congregate right here. Which means units like Dacias can hit all of them at the same time, as well as units like Agaris are quite effective here. Let's actually move that over. And then also, if you are funny, I've tried it around, it didn't seem to do a lot, but you can use an Augustine to pull one of these ranged units. You see the ones with like the arrow below them, you can pull them closer to yourself. Overall, this is kind of a deal of, if you have a T-Hearty, you should gravitate towards fight 1, because T-Hearty pretty much dominates fight 1. If you have a T-Hearty, one of your main focuses should be fight 1, and a combo of just the Dacias and just the T-Hearty is pretty much already going to be enough, at least for like the earlier stages of this iteration. Throw in, let's say, Agaris, Dacias, T-Hearty, and you're pretty much good to go. Now the other thing we have here is healers. from my testing, at least for the earlier stages, healers don't seem necessary. So you can just go in with pretty much raw DPS. You can kind of leave these healers out because you're going to need them for later fights. All right, fight 2. Fight 2 works actually differently to fight 1, which is the same with all 5 fights. They do have their differences between each other. So once more, let's look at the special stage condition, which is going to make this all become a bit clearer. And that is the special stage condition is when an enemy burrows, or better said, when enemies burrow, they gain 50% damage reduction. So it's these crabs, they go into the ground and then they don't come out. If they don't come out, they take half the damage. But if you inflict them with a control effect, you actually pull them out of the surface, so you pull them back up, they lose the damage reduction, and also every instance of control effect you add on top of controlled enemies increases the duration by 50%. So let's say you have a 6-second stun and then you add a sleep, then the sleep is going to increase the duration of the stun from 6 to 9 seconds, meaning you can keep them over and up longer. So a unit that is incredibly good here and almost worth it to say, okay, focus on this stage, is going to be Transcendent Amy. If you have a Transcendent Amy, you should pretty much be playing this stage. Now let me actually show you or imitate the reason why. The reason is these are ranged crabs. Those aren't going to come to you. So the only thing you can do is either use a Stereite Aeona to move into the units, which isn't advised, but you can use a TR Amy to push this crab right here into the other crabs, making it easier to hit all of them at the same time. Though with sufficient AoE, you will be able to hit all of them at the same time. So yeah, if you have a T-Amy, fight 2 is quite good, but T-Amy, let me already tell you, works just as well for fight 3. So the current effects you have at the moment that do control are going to be stuns through induction by Triss, Jo, and Selena, or by August, Hati, Geraint, and Bella through their ultimates. Then you have the sleep from Pavana and Lorelei, the taunt from Jestel, as well as also the taunt from Theophane. Theophane's taunt might be the best thing you have here because his taunt lasts for 10 whole seconds. And then you also have like the, I think it's 2-second morph from Daikalo, which isn't as long a CC effect, but it can be used to increase the duration of other CC effects, right? Once again, you then also have healers here, but I don't think they are going to be as necessary. They're pretty much here just in case, and especially if the stages go higher when they actually start dealing damage. Now, fight 3, with this having 3 enemies, fight 3 actually has 9. So in fight 3, you're looking at 9 enemies, 3 guys on range that you most likely won't be able to touch, and then you have these melee burrowers. These melee burrowers are going to go into the ground, but if you pull them out of the ground, they will move towards your melee unit. So your first goal is kind of to activate these melee burrowers with, for example, a Theophane ult onto these guys to like pull them out of the ground, or even better said, you have Theophane that pulls them out of the ground, and then you pull the others with, let's say, I don't know, Pavana ult, a Daikalo morph, just to like get them out of the ground and moving towards Theophane. You want to clump up these 6 at the same point so that with additional AoE damage, you can just hit it. Because do not forget, even though yes, you are playing the mechanic and they are now taking 100% of the damage still needs to come from somewhere. Just applying stun effects, just applying sleep, just applying taunts isn't going to magically increase your damage. But again, these are all the viable units. You can also just use a Jester if you don't know, right, of these units that fit. Once again, we have our row of healers. Now, where the row of healers actually comes in quite usefully is going to be fight 4. So fight 4 is quite straightforward in that the basic effect of the stage is allies are just going to lose 2% of their max HP per second, and if you drop below 70% HP, you reduce your attack speed by 100%, which means they're basically going to be attacking in slow motion. Then also, when your units go below 40%, they become stunned, permanently stunned. If you do not hear your units above 40%, again, you're not going to be able to unstun them. So what that means is you want to make sure that, for example, like look at these calculations. After just 15 seconds, you're going to lose the attack speed, and after 30 seconds, they're going to be perma-stunned. So this is the reason why healers and fighters should be avoided to be used for the earlier stages, and that is you are going to need them for these stages right here. So the way this looks like is you also only want to do one of them. You want to do either stage 4 or stage 5 because there isn't enough healers in this game for you to reliably be beating both of these stages. So the way this looks like is you want to pick 2 stages from 1, 2 and 3 and then 1 stage from 4 and 5 because 4 and 5 will work in a similar way. So here you have 2 units, which means AoE isn't as important because there's only 2 targets to hit, while in the stage 5, which is an exact copy of this from the mechanics to the way you want to approach this, there is more of an AoE focus, and you can see 4 like single target enemies, 4 melee enemies, and then 1 ranged enemy, which you probably won't reach as easily. So what you want to do here is preferably use, for example, an acapella and a Steroid and Iona, a acapella and an Adina, maybe even a Steroid Iona and an Adina, a Steroid Iona and a Seth. It really depends on you also trying out Mock Hunt and seeing if you can keep your team above those magic thresholds for the HP. If you cannot keep your units above 70%, you're most likely going to lose. If your units go to 40%, you are definitely going to lose. So using 1, 2, potentially 3 healers, depending on how far the clan hunt goes, is advised. So this is the mechanic you need to look out for, but do not forget you still need to do damage. You still need to somehow be able to kill these units. So whenever you're struggling with the mechanic, just doing a whole bunch of damage also usually helps. So that is pretty much it, and out of all the units we've talked about, these are the units that don't have a dedicated place. And that means they are a type of DPS that does not specifically work in any stage, so you can just slot in general. Like Thiebaud is just a generally good AoE DPS. Van Helsing is a generally good AoE / single target DPS. He's just gonna shred whatever you need. So if you're looking for damage, just slot in a Van Helsing in the team. Same is true for Transcendent Noah, though do make sure you have a Bella in the same team as T Noah. Otherwise you won't be able to get his ultimate going. Lamia is very, very effective for every single stage, because not only does she have good AoE or good single target, but you also have the extra healing during Blood Moon. Agaris, Lamine, also great picks specifically for the stages with the more enemies. The more enemies you can hit, the more damage you can deal. And then you also have like Gilrain, Hati, Augustine for stuns. Kayn is so small because Kayn actually doing anything useful is a bit unlikely. And then also you have, for example, Ressa, Gilrain, Cisia as like just basic DPSs. So those are like your DPSs you can just slot into your team with all these other fights together, kind of. And that's the basic breakdown of the fight. So let's briefly talk about mock hunt and the concept of leaving a fight. So if you go into a mock hunt and then you can test out, right? You can go into a mock hunt, you can use your 5 units, you can also change gear in between the mock hunts, and you can try and see if you can clear the stage. Preferably, best case scenario, you beat a stage going from 100% to 0%, but even if you don't, you just want to do as much damage as possible so your clan mates can then finish off the boss. If you also get an idea of what you're capable of damage-wise, you can attack either earlier if you know you won't be doing as much damage, or later if you know that if a weaker clanmate is going to hit, you can then finish off the boss while losing as few points of damage from your like max potential as possible. Now this is important. Quitting does not consume battle attempts. If you go into a fight, even a proper one, if you go into a proper fight, a proper hunt, which you only have 3 of a day, and you make a mistake during play, you are not going to be able to reach like your damage potential. Just quit out of the fight, you won't be losing your attempt. So this should have been everything basic covered for the clan hunt, and I will be making a follow-up video with all the, like you could say, optimal / best team compositions. so you can get an idea on how to score high on these bosses. Though for now, I do hope it helped you out, and may your clan be successful. Peace!